use technical terms. Because at the end of the day, you want them to buy into your process. If they are against you, they won't do the test. And that's, as a coach or a sports scientist, is the worst thing in the world, that you have players not trusting you. And so in order to build that trust, you need to explain them why you're doing it in a language which they will understand, making it easily available. So at Chennaiyin, what we used to do is to stick, for example, your training GPS data or your body fats or any test we do in the medical room. We had a section on the wall uh, where all the information was. So players, if they came for treatment or massages, they can easily get that information in the medical room. And they used to have also competitions between them in terms of who covered more distance or who is stronger than who, and all, and these types of things. So it is necessary to make this easily available. If you test all these things and then just keep it to yourself and just share it with the coach, players next time when you do it, they'll say, what's the point of me doing it, because I don't get to see the results. And having worked with professional players, they will ask you for your results. So it will be very useful if you make it easily available to them. And like I said, managing the data longitudinally will give you a greater accuracy in terms of knowing what knowing your player and also your training program. So to conclude, testing and monitoring is helpful to ensure optimum performance and prevent injuries. The tests you use should be valid, reliable, and specific. The different times of the season when you test them will do it for different reasons. So, for example, before the start of uh, the training season, you test them to form the basis of your training program. On a day-to-day aspects, you'll monitor them through GPS or RPE to know the recovery rates and the fatigue. And after the season or a training block, in order to get a reflection of your training program. Disseminating data in an easy and simple language. So making sure that the way in which the information is given is easy and simple to understand. And daily monitoring to give you greater information on the day-to-day training load. So like I said, training load is critical when it comes to preventing injuries. And at Chennai and at Pune, in my time at least, we had the least amount of injuries in the league. And that's through these aspects of looking after the GPS, making sure that they rate themselves at the end of each training session with the RP, and having a good estimate of the day-to-day monitoring, which gives us greater information, which then again helps us to make better decisions. And I have attached this YouTube link. It's regarding Cristiano Ronaldo, who was tested by some experts at Castrol, I think. And it's a very interesting experiment. You get to see why he is the fittest footballer in the world. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atharva Tere. It was, I would say it was a very, enlightening presentation, because as far as the physiotherapists are concerned, we don't usually deal with the sports science part or the testing part.
Yes.
So definitely, as far as the on-field testing and other things are concerned, this was quite a different perspective from your side. I would like to ask you the first question.
Yeah.
How do you what do you think about the fact that how much important exercise testing is as far as the injury management is concerned? Can you predict the injuries? Which player will have which injuries?
So, like I said, when it comes to day-to-day monitoring, daily monitoring, things like GPS, which gives you an estimate of the training load. Monitoring training load is, for a sports scientist, the main thing. That governs if your players are fit or if your players are going to get injured. So in terms of day-to-day monitoring, especially uh, GPS, things like GPS, RP are very important in terms of preventing injuries. And also from, for example, like a physiotherapist point of view, if you have a player who has got muscle imbalances, for example, then you can work them individually and you can prevent that aspect of his body making him injured in the future. So you can work these things out individually. So yeah, in terms of preventing injuries also, it is equally important to monitor your players.
Okay. How much is the importance of creating a sync between a sports scientist and a physiotherapy department, or any surgeon, if you would say, when as far as we are dealing with the sports athletes?
Yeah. Uh, Physiotherapists and sports scientists, at least in a team setting, they work in tandem. They work hand in hand. So in terms of having a good relationship between the two is very important. And like I said, there are certain aspects of daily monitoring or testing which our physio does, which can be which helps us as sports scientists also to share the load, obviously, because we can't do everything. So we need help, and if a physiotherapist can be able to take on the responsibility of doing a few tests or doing a few monitoring assessments, it always helps us. And also from uh, progressing from that, for example in football or any sport for that matter, that at the end latter stages of rehab is usually when the sports scientists and physiotherapists have a lot of interaction, is where these aspects come into play. So if you have a physiotherapist who uh, gives a sports scientist tests results from a test or a monitoring assessment, it will be easier for us to then take decisions on depending on where the player is in terms of rehab, and when it is my responsibility as a sports scientist to then take him on the field and prepare him for the games and team training.
Okay. Atharva, you are somebody who has worked with football, with international teams, and now you're working in Indian setup. So,
Yeah.
what is the one difference in terms of commitment, in terms of temperament of the players, which you feel is different in both these places?
In terms of temperament, so the international players which play in ISL, most of them have are in kind of their twilight of their career, but still they are the most professional human beings. They are most professional players. They go to sleep on time. They wake up on time. They train the hardest. So I think as Indian players, we need to cultivate that aspects of professionalism into our sport or into our players, because in terms of coachability there is something called coachability. So those aspects that if you are easier for a coach or a sports scientist to coach or to train, that ability is usually better in Indian players because they want to learn. If they have a particular, if you are going to test or monitor them on a particular thing, you will have Indian players asking you more questions, or they will be more eager to for their results than foreign players. And that
Okay.
also is down to the fact that foreign players have been doing it since a very long time, whereas Indian players, or in Indian football at least, testing and monitoring is something which has started probably, I would say, since the start of ISL. So probably 6 years, 5 years time, we are monitoring Indian players. So
Okay.
those two I think differ mainly on that aspects. Rest of it obviously technically and football skill wise, foreign players are at least at now at least far better than Indian players. But we are bridging the gap. Hopefully soon we will have more Indian players playing in the ISL. And yeah.
Okay. Atharva, we have a question. It's from Dr. Mayuri Saxena.
Yeah.
He says, when should we test the player? Like before their warm up or after their warm up? And does both the scenarios, do they give a different result?
So depending on what you're testing. So for example, if you're testing or monitoring something like body fat, you don't need to do any warm up. You just ask them to, for example, if the first time you ask them to come without having breakfast on an empty stomach, the next time you test them, you should try and keep the same. And also, if the person measuring the test on the second time is different, you will give different results. But for example, if you're going to test them in in on the field, for example, in a yo-yo test, then of course you need to warm them up before doing the test, because it's kind of a maximal type test. So you need them to be completely warmed up and ready to run at maximal speeds. Otherwise, it will be the worst thing that sports scientists can face is a player getting injured during a test.
Okay.
So yeah, warm up will be essential when it comes to, for example, agility, sprint, power, even the force platform. Like I said, power, uh, one RM if you're doing that, or 3 RM. Warm up essential, of course. But aspects like body fat or RP is something you do at the end of the session, anyways.
Mhm.
But wellness questionnaires or body fat is something you don't really need.
Okay. Have you ever faced any challenge, or have you ever faced any difficulties while dealing with Indian players and while dealing with foreign players? What are the different challenges which are involved?
Challenges, like I said, foreign players are very easy to deal with professionally. So if you tell them to do certain things, they will do it. But again, it's like I said, I mentioned in the presentation as well, uh, is to make them buy into whatever you're trying to do. Let it be an Indian player or a foreign player. It is very important that the players are on your side. And for you to be able to do that, you need to be transparent with them, one. So you need to tell them why you're doing this, what you're going to get out of this, and how will that make you a better player. And that point three is the one which resonates with them the most, that how can I get better. And if you tell them we are doing so and so to make you better, they will do that so and so. So it is very important. Let be foreigner, Indian, you need to make them buy into whatever you're trying to make them do. So yeah, that is
Okay.
probably the main thing.
Okay. Have you ever injured a player yourself while testing?
No, thankfully no. And I don't think I will ever will have an injury during monitoring or testing scenarios.
Okay. Acha, all these tests, all these aspects which are being discussed today,
Yeah.
uh, what do you essentially think is one of the most important aspects of fitness as far as football is concerned? Maybe speed, stamina, agility. What do you think is the most important aspect?
The most important aspect will probably be, if you want to monitor just one thing, you have time to do just one test, I would say the aerobic endurance. So on the field, if you're doing a yo-yo test or a shuttle run test, that is something which is very important towards the performance in a football player. So aerobic endurance would probably be the first thing, and
Okay.
anaerobic endurance will probably be the second thing. But again, all these aspects, like I said, the more tests you do, the more information you get, and the better your decisions will be. If you only have results from one test, then it will be very difficult for you to
Analyze it.
yeah. So the more tests you do, the better results you get. But uh, at Chennai, at least, the test we used to do was body fat. We used to do shuttle run, a thing called Premier League fitness run, which is basically a shuttle run. The agility test, so a T test. We used to test them in the gym, 3 RM, and the power aspect. So using a force plate. So these 5 tests were the core tests. Then again, daily monitoring, we used to have GPS and RP every session, every training session, every game day. And we used to have like a nutritionist or a psychologist as well coming and doing 1 or 2 seminars a year, but that was it.
Okay. Okay. I think, Atharva, that was, I think we have all the doubts and all the questions. And there is one more question.
Yeah.
Can we apply the same test for the players of under 14 and above 18? Are the tests
So,
same?
so that's what I said. Like, it's you need to be aware of their puberty. So if a player who's before pre-pubertal, then the tests you do, for example, aerobic endurance or anaerobic endurance will yield different results if you do it for somebody who's pubertal or adolescent. So in terms of that, yes, you have to choose different tests for under 14 and above 18 or adults if the under 14 is not past puberty.
Okay. And Atharva, I think we'll take the last question for today.
Yeah.
And that will be, is there any gender difference between puberty in testing values?
Before puberty. So no, there's not much gender difference before puberty, but girls tend to hit puberty earlier than boys. So in terms of that, you need to be very, because if you see the younger age groups, girls and boys play on the same team most of the times. So that's because there's not much physical aspects which are different before puberty, but after puberty is something very different, and girls tend to reach puberty quicker than boys or earlier than boys.
Okay. Uh, ठीक है, Atharva. It was very nice sharing your experiences, sharing your knowledge and expertise with us.
Thank
And definitely, it was something very new as far as the topic is concerned for all the physiotherapists. But definitely, it was very knowledgeable, and we gained a lot of things we will have as a take-home point.
Yeah,
So thank you. Thanks a lot for giving us your
thank you
time,
for having me.
and it was very nice of you, Atharva. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.